So, today we're going to dive into a sermon that takes on a problem we've all struggled with, drifting. But here's the thing, its solution is the complete opposite of what you'd probably expect. It's a strategy for how to stay on track, not by fighting the current, but by doing something else entirely.
You've felt this, right? That slow, almost invisible drift away from a goal or a relationship or something you really believe in. It's this deep human fear that you'll lose the passion or the purpose you once had. So the big question is, how do you stop it?
The source for our explainer today is a sermon with this really direct, very practical-sounding title. I mean, it sounds like a how-to guide, right? Like a step-by-step manual for staying the course, which is exactly what our brains are wired to look for when we have a problem.
But then, right out of the gate, the speaker does something you just don't see coming. He tells the crowd that his own title is bad, that it's actually misleading. And that's what's so interesting, because it's a huge signal that our expectations are about to get flipped completely upside down.
Okay, so before we get to his really surprising answer, let's talk about our default setting. How do we normally try to solve a problem like drifting?
Think about it. It doesn't matter if you're looking at a financial crisis, a project that failed at work, or some personal struggle. Our process is almost always the same. We find the problem, and then immediately, what do? We ask why. Why did this happen? We have this deep belief that if we can just figure out the root cause, we can build a solution to make sure it never happens again. So naturally, that's the very next question. If we're going to write a how-to guide on avoiding drift, we have to start by figuring out why people drift in the first place. Seems logical enough, right?
And, we can come up with a whole list of pretty good reasons. We might blame a bad environment or a really tough time in our lives, maybe a lack of information. But the sermon makes this incredible point that even in perfect, ideal conditions, people can still drift. And that kind of suggests that our usual assumptions might not be the whole story here.
And this is where the argument takes a really fascinating turn. Because when the sermon takes that logical why question and applies it to its own source material, the Bible, it runs straight into a brick wall. Here's the bombshell. The very book that you'd expect to give this detailed breakdown of why people go off course is, according to the sermon, totally silent on the subject. It'll describe the problem in detail, sure, but it never gives you a philosophical origin story for it. So instead of focusing on the why, the Bible just presents drifting as this undeniable reality of being human. It's not treated like a puzzle we're supposed to solve, but more like a fact that demands a response. The whole focus is on what you're going to do now, not on how you got here in the first place.
And this quote really gets to the heart of the sermon's critique of our normal method. The speaker is basically arguing that obsessing over the root cause is a distraction. It sends you down this rabbit hole of theories and ideas, but it keeps you from ever actually taking the action needed to deal with the problem head-on.
So, if asking why is the wrong tool for this job, the sermon offers a completely different and pretty radical approach.
I mean, that's the obvious question, isn't it? If digging into the root cause is a dead end for this particular problem, then what in the world are we supposed to do instead?
The sermon builds its entire strategy on this one verse from the book of Hebrews. And notice the instruction. It isn't to analyze the currents that are pulling you away. It's to pay much closer attention to something else entirely.
So you can see the two methods laid out here, side by side. Our normal human method is all about analyzing the problem. We ask why, and we try to build a defense. But the method from Hebrews is the polar opposite. It says, forget about the problem's origin story. Instead, focus relentlessly on the solution. Ask, who should I hold on to, instead of, why is this happening? It's a massive shift in your whole point of view.
Okay, so what does it actually mean to pay closer attention? Let's break down what that kind of intense focus really looks like.
According to the speaker, this solution isn't some quick fix or a simple three-step plan. No, the argument is that the entire book of Hebrews is basically one long, deep meditation on a single subject, and it's all designed to be the anchor that keeps you from drifting. So what is this subject of intense focus? Well, first, it's this idea of Christ as a high priest. And the real meaning here, the thing that matters, is that you're focusing on someone who gets it, an intermediary who isn't distant or cold, but who mercifully understands what it's like to be weak and human. That makes him approachable.
And the second big idea is Christ as the ruler of the world to come. So, what's the practical takeaway there? It's all about trustworthiness. If you truly believe someone is in control of the ultimate destination, it becomes a heck of a lot easier to anchor yourself to them when you're in the middle of a storm.
And this is so crucial. The sermon argues that this deep focus isn't about intellectually collecting data, like you're studying for a test. The whole goal is relational. It's about building a connection that's so strong, so compelling, that the very idea of drifting away just becomes unthinkable.
So let's bring this all together. What is the central, practical idea that we can walk away with from this really unique strategy?
The entire strategy really boils down to this one powerful shift. Stop pouring all of your energy into analyzing and avoiding the negative, the things you're afraid of. Instead, redirect all of that energy into relentlessly pursuing the positive, the thing you actually want to hold on to.
And this is not just some theological concept, right? Look at how this applies to, well, everything. In a marriage, instead of constantly asking, how do we avoid fighting? You start asking, how can we build an even deeper connection? At work, you shift from, how do I not get fired? To, what kind of work will bring me fulfillment and make me excellent? It is a powerful change from a defensive crouch to a forward-moving pursuit. So, I'll leave you with this question to chew on. In those areas of your own life where you feel that fear of drifting, just take a second and ask yourself, is all my focus on the chaotic currents I'm trying to escape? Or is it locked onto the shore that I'm desperately trying to reach? The answer just might change everything.